for alcoholism and substance abuse. We use the DSM-5, and clinicians know what that is. If you check that out, you find out all tons of stuff, and it's what guides my everyday practice and my diagnosing and evaluations and
what
treatment.
Is it? What was it?
It's called the DSM-5. Yeah, and when you're using or doing whatever, you're looking at for some reason you're doing that to help yourself, make it through some situation probably, or you just did it for fun and you're addicted to it. There's so many stories, and that's why it's for me it's difficult to speak to a group of people or stereotype a population when I know there's a story with every individual. Something as basic as you had an accident, a car crash, and you were prescribed pain pills, and you took them for so long that it became normal to you to want to take that every day. And yes, that's an addiction, and that's substance abuse. But, it's not criminalizing like we like to hear and display. I mean, that's the kind of stories we talk about. But there are just real people with real problems, and there are ways to help them. And we want to see the best for everybody at the end of the day.
So you coming from this background as being a social worker, being a mental health provider, how do you see like far as locally in our community, how do you see far as making a change far as with the community and the people in it right now? How would you go about to try to establish some kind of common ground where people can be in peace, healthy, mentally stable, and kind of go on to live a normal life and try to achieve different things? Like how would you, like, what would be your first step to trying to, bring about change in that?
I think I would approach it from an educational standpoint. It's a lot of questions unanswered. It's a lot of stigma, and the basic facts are easy to present. And then people who would be interested in learning more or wanting to seek out, help, they usually do. Yeah. And, news travels fastest by word of mouth. You say, hey, man, I went to this person, and, you call your cousin, and their mom calls, their sister, and the whole block knows that something good is happening or something exciting has happened in someone's life. And for our community, I think that would be most effective in trying to make sure everybody right. And you could just, there's so many ways you could approach it, but I think, relationships and trust first and foremost, and then, having the right information and being able to say, hey, I don't know, but, here's someone who can help you find the right answer, not giving up when you hit that first brick wall. It matters. It should matter to you to continue to do whatever you can do to get where you want to be in life, as far as your peace of mind and your happiness.
Definitely. And as we talking about far as what you could do to help the community or to bring forth change, what would you say for someone like I'm gonna be honest, I'm not the most political guy. I'm not political at all. Far as like right now, if the law doesn't directly pertain to me, I know nothing about it. Mm-hmm. And that's just being honest. Like I would say the only laws that I'm starting to understand now is dealing with workers' comp. Mm-hmm. Straight up. That so since that pertaining to me, I'm looking into it like, oh wow, this is this and this is this. But for a person like me that doesn't get involved far as with my local leaders, not just presidents and different things like that, but the people that's in office in my own community.
Right. Like
what kind of advice would you say to that kind of person? That is it negligence? Is it just like what would you say? What kind of advice would you offer to a person that's not involved in their local politics?
As passionate as I am, I would go ahead and say that is negligence, and I'll tell you why. I don't even know where the rhetoric that I'm not into politics, and I don't know where that started, but it's so common, and it's so heartbreaking to me because the people who represent you, first of all politics are local, And if something's going on and you want to change, you have to know who's in power, who can make that decision, who can hear your issue and give you, the kind of response that you need. And, workers' comp is probably a federal issue. But like here on a state level, you owe it to yourself to be involved in what governs your school, your children, your community, your neighborhood, your tax dollars, and not just like some kind of overview like I get what government does, but every law that is made pretty much applies to you. Every issue that's happening, you find out, what's important to you, or you just start by figuring out who represents you, who's your city councilor, who's your state representative? Who's your state senator? These people should actually live in your community. They should be accessible. You should be able to call up their office and schedule a meeting and just say, hey, I've never met a city councilor before. What do you do? I mean, that's the basics of civic engagement. And we live in a democracy. And that's where we the people should be involved in our government. And it has not been that way for some time because we're not voting. We're not turning out to vote. I know, 18 to 35-year-olds are some of the lowest voters who turn out. And I think with the climate as it is right now and all of the social change and social issues going on, that this generation will show up at the box when it's time to vote. But like I said, that's an education thing, and you just wanting to take out some time to say, I need to know who these people are. You represent me. What do you represent? And then it gets to the point where you're not afraid to build a relationship with that person because you followed that person. You followed that person's campaign. You know who's in the office. And that should make you feel comfortable. And if they're not doing the things that they promised they would do or that you're, informing them of that affects you and your family, you figure out, another way when election comes up.
Yeah, that's and to be honest, I mean, being, from Chicago, a young kid, I only knew, far as who to vote for, I only knew what party I was. I only knew all this stuff because that's what my grandmother was. Mm-hmm. So I never really developed a sense of knowing for myself what Bill Clinton stood for or what, Ronald. I never knew because if my grandma had that blue pin-up sign in front of the house. That's who I was going. That's who I was riding with because that's who my grandma was. So I feel like I never really established a sense of knowing what was what from that young age until now. It's like, I just go off of hearsay, what someone else says in the sense, or what information, or information travel fast now with social media. So that's where I get my bits and pieces from, and with I didn't vote for Obama, and I'm open to the backlash that I may get from that, but I didn't. Like, I didn't go out to the polls. I didn't. I didn't look to see like a lot of those laws that was signs being up, vote this for on your locals. This I knew none of that stuff was. So I don't know what was being affected. I don't know what funds was going to get taken. I didn't know any. I was just completely ignorant to a lot of that stuff. And that's why one of the biggest reasons why I jumped on having you on here, because it's like I know a lot of people that's like that as well. Mm-hmm. So just hearing this is very, very informative.
Well, it's an exciting time, and I tell people, don't feel ashamed, don't feel guilty about what you didn't do in the past, because there's nothing you could do about that. But you can literally decide today. Look up your representative. That's a start. Go register to vote if you have not. You can do that today. And, I don't want you to feel bad about not voting for Obama, because fortunately he won 2 terms as a president, and he's not going to run anymore. So, but, I know we're busy and we get caught up in life, but like these days, it's just so hard to stand by, and especially what we see here with the teacher pay crisis and, government, allowing cuts and breaks and putting everything on the backs of, everyday working Oklahomans. And, the reason why I was compelled to actually run is that I'm here with you. I'm on the ground, and I'm actually being I'm dealing with these issues. I'm shouldering the burden. You know, like if I make it to my next check with $50 in the bank, that's cause for celebration. Yeah. And as a licensed professional with 2 degrees, that should not be the case. But here we are. Yeah. And I've got the time and the resources, and I commit, you know, to make sure that every voice is represented on the House floor. And that is why I'm running. And that's why everybody needs to be involved and to support your interests. You know, you don't know, you said you didn't know where you stood on some of those issues, but I mean, these days we have Google, we have everything, you know, word of mouth, that's fine. But I need you to know for sure, know your conviction and know your interests. Because if you're a teacher and you're voting for someone who says, you know, they're going to increase teacher pay, but every time they vote in the state capitol, it's against education. Yeah. You know, that's against your interests, you know, for next time. So you elect people and you keep your receipts. So when it's re-election, you can say, this is what happened. You know, this is how I feel. This is not right. And then you did what you could do. You utilized your power, your agency in this society. And I think that's what we all should do from the age that we're 18 until we're no more. We need to be engaged because this too is our world, you know.
Yeah. So would you say, what about like the feeling of for people that go and they vote and they about this change and they don't see no kind of impact. They don't see anything that their votes are doing. Would you rather say, I don't know, because I feel like I'd rather not even do that because I feel like I've lost already. Mm-hmm. Like I go to the polls expecting to lose. Like if I was to do that, because one, ignorance and just not knowing or having any kind of, I would say, belief in it at all. So if I was to go, but I'm thinking after this podcast that, you know, I may look into something like that, and I'm definitely voting for you. So I would actually, you know, go with a lost mentality. Like it's not gonna.
Well, if you feel defeated, you know, you might not want to bother. But if you feel empowered, you are empowered because you have a vote, and your vote is your voice, and your vote is your power. And one of the things that we don't realize, especially here in Oklahoma, we have very low voter turnout. I think, you know, for the governor's race, it was a 30%. 30% of registered voters voted for their governor. Wow. We have races decided by, you know, little as 27 votes, 17 votes. You know, if 6 more people showed up, you know,
could have changed.
Yeah. So your vote is your power. It is your access to the kind of community and you know, state and well-being that you believe you should have. Unless you're running for office, you need to do that, and you know, connect yourself with people who are a part of your issue. You know, if it's teacher pay, there's so many groups in the community that's advocating. They have people at the Capitol talking to legislatures. Before I decided to run for office, I spent a lot of time volunteering and working and partnering with different groups who focus on advocacy and civic engagement and teaching and training people how to go about, you know, using their agency as citizens. Mm-hmm. And there's so much out there if we just stop and look and listen.
And pay attention, yeah. To be honest, when you said about the governor's, I don't feel like, you know, I don't feel as if I'm just like, I know most people are going to be like, what? But I don't feel that way. Like, I don't even know who our governor is. Like, I don't know our governor's name.
Oh. Well, her name is Mary Fallon, first woman governor in state history. So that might be one. That might be one for you to remember.
But
you know, learn something new every day. That's exciting.
You do.
Right.
And I know for a fact if that's something that you're into, you're going to want to know more about it. As far as our mayor, who is our mayor?
Our mayor is G.T. Bynum. He was elected in November, and this is his first term. Exciting guy.
Wow. Yeah. I have no idea. The only thing that I would say like I told you, like the last year that I've really paid it, the last year and a half I paid it to was the workers' comp laws.
Right.
And who was dictating what with that.
Are you talking about the overtime rule?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's when I was like, let me look into these laws, and I started to gain interest to see what was it affecting me directly, or was it benefiting me? So that's